This is the graph of the sine curve from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. To see what's going on, we first of all notice that we have our y-axis and our x-axis, and the curve is given by y is equal to sine of x. So if I have sine of 0, if I have x equals 0, sine of 0 is 0. When x is 90, we have sine 90, which is 1. When x is 180, sine of 180 is 0. Sine of 270 is minus 1. Sine of 360 is 0. It's important that we know these values because if we know them, it'll be really easy to sketch the curve. The graph also repeats every 360 degrees. It doesn't just finish between 0 and 360. You must be able to sketch the curve. So what I would say is, if you learn the values here, so if you learn that sine of 0 is 0, sine of 90 is 1, and so on, you should have no problem sketching the curve from memory. You might have to solve an equation, a trigonometric equation, and the best way to do this is to sketch the graph that we need. So if we want to solve the equation sine x is equal to 0.43 for values of x between 0 and 360, so x is bigger than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 360, the first thing I'm going to do is sketch the graph of y equals sine x in the domain 0 to 360. Now, what I'm going to do is draw the line y is equal to 0.43. And if you remember, this is a horizontal line at 0.43. Now, wherever the line that we've just drawn hits the graph will correspond to a solution to the equation. What we need to do now, and I should say 3, that should be a 3, sorry. What we need to do now is use our calculator. We need to press shift sine 0.43. What that will do is give us one of the solutions, and we can see what solution that is. We can see that one solution is to the left of 90 degrees and the other is to the right. So one solution is less than 90, so that must be the 25 degrees or the 25.47 degrees that our calculator is displaying. Then, to find the other solution, which is to the right of 90, I need to use the symmetry of the graph. To get to 24.47, we add 24.47 degrees to 0. Now, because the sine graph is symmetrical, then we can also go backwards the same amount from 180. So we can work out the other solution by doing 180 take away 24.47, because sine of 0 is 0, sine of 180 is also 0, so there is symmetry at these points. I then end up with 155.53 degrees as my second solution. So these would be my two solutions. You might also have negative angles. This is to do with the opposite direction. So if you draw a unit circle, then anti-clockwise is seen as positive and clockwise is seen as negative. This is where negative angles come in. So here's us on the right, we can see our sine curve as we've sketched it before. But we can also carry on the graph for negative angles, as shown. And the graph will carry on. It repeats every 360 degrees. For example, we might want to solve the equation sine x is equal to minus 0.36 for values of x between 0 and 360. So even though we want solutions that are positive between 0 and 360, or non-negative I should say, then it's still helpful to consider the negative part of the graph. I'm going to start exactly the same way as before, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line, y equals minus 0.36. Wherever that line hits the graph will be solutions to the equation sine x equals minus 0.36. So I'm going to draw some straight lines up from there to indicate those solutions. Now, the thing is, the only solutions that we want are those between 0 and 360. which is this solution here and this solution here. However, if I put into my calculator sine minus 1 minus 0.36 as before, I end up with minus 21.1, which doesn't correspond to either of those circled solutions. In fact, logically, the only thing it can correspond to is this solution here, because it's before minus 90. So I know that this is, so the circle solution on the left is minus 21.1. And to get there, I've gone 21.1 units left of 0. Now, again, 180 is symmetrical with 0 because sine of 0 is 0 and sine of 180 is 0. So to find the solution here, I need to do 180 plus 21.10 to 2 decimal places, of course. And that will give me 201.10. Similarly, sine of 360 is 0, so that's also symmetrical. But this time we need to go to the left. So to find the circle solution now, I need to do 360 take away 21.10. And this will give me two solutions, x is equal to 201.10 and x equals 338.90 to 2 decimal places. You can also check your answer now using a calculator as follows. You could put in sine, making sure that we're in degree mode, sine of 201.10. That gives you minus 0.36 to 2 decimal places. Similarly, we could try sine of 338.90. And that also gives you minus 0.36 to 2 decimal places. So that confirms that we're correct. Here's a question for you to try. Please pause the video now and have a go at it. And when you're ready for the answer, press play. Here is the answer. First I'm going to do is draw the horizontal line, y is equal to minus 0.55. Wherever the blue line hits the graph, that corresponds to a solution. I only want solutions between 0 and 360, so I'm only concerned with the two solutions on the right. However, when I use my calculator, shift sine or sine minus 1 minus 0.55, I get minus 33.36, which clearly corresponds to this solution here. I use the symmetry of the graph. One of the solutions is going to be 180 plus 33.37, and the other one is 360 take away 33.37. So my solutions are as follows: 213.37 degrees and 326.63 degrees. The cosine graph, as you know, well, we know about sine, cos and tan, so it makes sense that there's also a cosine graph and a tangent graph. The cosine graph is just the sine graph shifted to the left by 90 degrees. So this is the graph of this is the cosine graph, and it's important that we know that cosine of 0 is 1, cos of 90 is 0, cos of 180 is minus 1, cos of 270 is 0, and cos of 360 is 1. If you remember these points, it'll be very easy to sketch the graph from memory. This is the graph in more negative values, so we can see that it's the same as the sine graph, but shifted to the left by 90 degrees. Here's an example of an equation. We want to solve the equation cosine of x is equal to minus 0.2 for x in the interval 0 degrees to 360 degrees. First thing I'm going to do, as before, is draw the horizontal line y is equal to minus 0.2, and then indicate that wherever it hits the graph, this blue line, we have solutions. The only solutions we're interested in are between 0 and 360. If I use my calculator to do cos minus 1 of minus 0.2, I get 101.54 degrees, which we should notice is this solution here. So if that is 101.54 degrees, then using the symmetry of the graph, because cos 90 is 0 and cos 270 is 0, the solution to the right is going to be the same distance away from 270 as the solution to the left is from 90. So I just need to figure out the difference between 90 and 101.54. I'd like to solve the equation cos x is equal to minus 0.2 for x in the interval 0 degrees to 360 degrees. To do this, I'm going to draw the horizontal line y is equal to minus 0.2. Wherever this hits the graph, I have solutions. I only want solutions between 0 degrees and 360 degrees, so that's these two solutions here. If I use my calculator now, I know cos x is minus 0.2, so to get x on its own, I need to do inverse cos, or cos minus 1, of both sides, and that will give me x is equal to 101.54. Now, because cos of 90 is 0 and cos of 270 is 0, the graph is symmetrical here. The graph is symmetrical at these 2 points. So the distance here between 90 and the solution 101.54 is identical to the distance between 270 and the solution on the right. So I just need to work out how far apart 90 and 101.54 are. That's obviously 11.54. And I need to go to the left of 270 by this amount. So I just need to do 270, take away 11.54, which is, that is 258.46. So my two solutions are x is equal to 101.54 degrees, and x is equal to 258.46 degrees, to 2 decimal places. Here's a question for you to try. Please solve the equation cos x is equal to minus 0.45 for x in the interval 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Firstly, you're going to have to sketch the graph of y equals cos x. Start with values between 0 and 360. But if you need to, you might need to sketch the graph for some negative values of x as well. Please pause the video now and have a go, and when you're ready for the answers, press play. Here are the answers. So you can see I've sketched the graph, I've drawn the line y is equal to minus 0.45. We do cos minus 1 of minus 0.45, giving you 116.74. which is obviously this solution. And then what I'm going to do is notice that because of the symmetry of the graph, the difference between 90 and 116.74 is going to be identical to the difference between 270 and the solution on the right. So to get from 90 to 116.74, we've added 26.74. So to get from 270 to the solution on the right, because we're going to the left, we need to take away 26.74. So our two solutions will be x is equal to 116.74 degrees, and the solution that we get when we do 270 take away 26.74, which is just 243.26 degrees.